If the internet is an engine, then its primary fuel source is analytics. But why does analytics matter so much in the streaming world? And what do you, as a publisher or creator of content, need to know about it? I'm Seth with ViewNexa. Let's dive right in. First, let's define what analytics even means, because essentially it's just data. But more granularly, it's a very specific kind of metadata. Analytics document and measure the exchange of information over the internet, taking note of things like the type and amount of information being exchanged. That's what we call traffic, as well as the suppliers and recipients of that information. All of this is tracked using something called a tracker cookie that gets embedded into the information itself. Then once that information is received, the cookie gathers data on the device that was used to receive it. Then, depending on laws and other applicable factors, that device data can be cross-referenced to identify its user and build a profile on them. That profile sits in a giant pool of other profiles just like it, and that pool is what we refer to as analytics. Okay, so now that we understand what analytics is, why is it the primary fuel source for the engine that is the internet? Well, the internet is essentially the world's largest never-ending live service, which means it requires a constant flow of large amounts of money just to maintain its infrastructure. The fees paid to internet service providers only partially fund that infrastructure. So it is funded primarily through the buying and selling of analytics. This is why you can use social media for free. It's not because it's cheap to run, because it is definitely not. It's just that whatever you'd be willing to pay for it pales in comparison to what advertisers are willing to pay for the analytics that someone like Facebook has on you. Information about you is more valuable than your buying power as a consumer. And yes, I mentioned advertisers a second ago because they tend to be the highest bidder when it comes to analytics data. But that's just how analytics turns into money. If you are a publisher or creator of content, you're not exactly out here trying to become a data broker. But that does not mean analytics is meaningless to you, not by a long shot. For you, the value of analytics lies in the insights that it can offer you, and you can use those insights to help you do things like maximize engagement. The more engagement your content commands, the more advertisers will be willing to pay for spots in your programming. So now the remaining question is, how can you turn your content into analytics about your audience? Typically, in the streaming world, each individual service provider generates their own analytics, usually with a bespoke or highly customized analytics engine. The quality of that analytics depends primarily on the engine being used to generate it and on the applicable privacy laws that govern it. But the common denominator here is that most publishers will obtain their analytics from the various service providers and hosting platforms they're working with. Now, there's one last thing to cover here. Analytics may only be as good as the engine used to generate it, but its usefulness to you depends entirely on the insights you're able to glean from it. And those insights, in turn, depend a lot on the interface that you're using to analyze the data. Many providers offer their own UI for that, but in cases where that leaves a lot to be desired, they will also offer the data in raw form, typically in a CSV file that you can download and plug into any spreadsheet program you like. But when the UI is very good, you have all the insights you could possibly want at your fingertips. So when you're evaluating any kind of service offering, do not forget to consider the analytics, including the engine quality and the usefulness of the user interface. After all, the last thing you want is to have to hire a full-time data analyst just to make sense of how a mountain of raw data looks in a spreadsheet. Speaking personally, as someone who obtained a Google Analytics certification 9 years ago, and don't congratulate me too much on that because 9 years is an eternity in this space, I can speak firsthand as to the difficult density level of this entire subject and how important a good interface is to being able to use any of it. You do not have to be a full-time data analyst in order to get useful insights from analytics. You just need the right tools and the right people. And it just so happens that we here at ViewNexa have been cooking in this kitchen. I can't say much about it now, but what I will say is, speaking as a former certified analytics expert, now might be a good time to start looking at having a conversation with someone at ViewNexa. And don't forget, I said in my last video that good analytics begins with good metadata at the content level. So if you'd like, you can have me or any of the other streaming experts at ViewNexa have a look at your content library and provide some useful feedback about how ready your content is for the market and how good your metadata is. And if you ask nicely, we'll even talk about analytics. So until next time, this is Seth from ViewNexa, signing off.